Austin ISD leaders say since the beginning of the school year, surveillance cameras have caught cars illegally passing school buses. But they're not just any cars, they're driverless Waymo vehicles. This week on Inside the Investigation, KXAN Investigative Reporter Kelly Wiley breaks down the safety concerns ahead of Waymo's anticipated expansion in Texas, and the software updates the company says fixes the issue. Welcome to Inside the Investigation. I'm digital data reporter Christopher Adams, and joining me this week is our usual host, Kelly Wiley. Kelly, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So today we're talking about some of your own reporting, your recent investigation into these Waymo driverless vehicles that are passing school buses on Austin roads. A pretty serious safety hazard that we're seeing here. Before we get too far into what's actually happening, just remind us, what does state law say drivers have to do when they come across a stopped school bus?
It's a good reminder. I mean, the law in Texas is that when the stop arms are out, and it'll look like a stop sign, essentially at the front of the bus and towards the back of the bus, you need to stop in both lanes of traffic. Right. So if you're not even in the same lane of traffic as the bus, if you are in the same lane of traffic as the bus, you need to stop, not halfway past the bus. You need to stop essentially like you would at a stop sign. Right. And there'll be flashing lights out as well. And the idea is that kids are loading and unloading, and there needs to be a complete safe environment for them to do that.
And we know the stop arms, they come out pretty far, the lights are flashing, it's pretty hard to miss these, right?
Right, it's hard to miss a yellow bus, and it would be hard to miss the stop signs on the side of them for sure.
Yes, but that is what has been happening with some of these Waymo drivers. How often has this been happening?
So the school district, we were able to get records, these email exchanges between the district and Waymo, but also the school district has had a program since 2016 where when the stop arms go out, there are cameras that are rolling and recording on the front side of the bus, so like a dash cam, but also on the side. And the idea is that if you were to pass it, it would take video of that, and their system essentially would mail you a ticket. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say get away with it. You may feel that you have, right. A police car might not have stopped you, but the school bus cameras likely did, and you would get a ticket in the mail that can be quite expensive, showing the video of you doing it or the picture of you doing it. And that's how you would essentially, the district would know and how you would know. What's interesting about this is that Austin ISD, because it's kind of this automatic system, the district, the people who run it, had not really noticed that the Waymos had been having trouble following the direction of the stop arm cameras until like the 12th time that it happened or that the cameras caught it. And so the district realized at some point in late October that this had happened 12 times, and that's when they started reaching out to Waymo. And they started reaching out to Waymo October 29th saying, this is going on. What are you doing to fix this? Yeah. Why is it happening? And then it happened 7 more times. So altogether, based on the videos that we have been provided and based on the records that we've been provided, there's 19 videos of Waymos in a variety of ways illegally passing the Austin ISD school bus.
And we'll get to those videos in a moment, but let's give some wider context. 19 of these involving Waymo drivers. How many citations has the district given out overall to driverless or cars with people in them?
So the district gives out thousands of these citations every year. The count that we got from Austin ISD's transportation department was 6,777 that have been mailed out citations since the beginning of the school year, or rather since August 1.
So a pretty small portion of them, 19 of these 6,700, but still a potentially serious safety hazard. I was watching some of the surveillance videos that you mentioned. These are not driverless cars on the other side of a divided highway, for example. No. Sometimes they're right up next to these cars. Right. Can you give us some examples of what these incidents have actually looked like?
Yeah, they've all been kind of different. So they've been all over town. Like, I was watching the videos and some of them I recognized. I was like, that's near my house. Yeah. I was like, that's near, there was one that was not exactly right in front, but near the school for the blind. So they're all over town. But in a couple videos, the Waymo can be seen just passing the bus. Like it's not pausing, it's not slowing down, it's going right past it in a couple of them. In some of the videos, it looks like the Waymo is reacting to something, but just not doing what the law says, right? So in some of the videos, the Waymo would slow down and kind of briefly stop for a couple of seconds at the first stop arm, and then the stop arms are still out and it's trying to go around it. It was almost observing it like a stop sign, rather like where you can pause once you do your stop and you can continue. It wasn't observing it as, oh, I have to stop until the stop arms come back in, which is a distinction I should have made earlier. Once you're at a stop arm for a school bus, you can't proceed until the stop arms go back in and the bus proceeds. So it was almost as if it was stopping, but then it would keep going after a couple of seconds. And then there were some instances where the Waymo was kind of going at a higher rate of speed. It would buzz past the first stop arm. And if this is the second stop arm, it would buzz past and then make an abrupt stop because it was maybe recognizing the other one. And then after a few seconds, it would keep going. There were some instances where it was a kind of almost like a neighborhood seeming road, just that in that what you're talking about, it wasn't like multiple lanes of traffic. It was like one neighborhood road. The bus is here, and it would kind of slow down. It was almost feeling like it was an obstruction, like it was trying to go around it, but slowly. And in 6 of the videos that we observed, 6 out of the 19, kids were in the frame of the video. So no kids were harmed, no one was hit, but there were kids in and around the buses, which in our conversations with Austin ISD was concerning for them.
Yeah, one of the videos that I saw, there's a kid or a student crossing the road. The Waymo initially stops, but then as soon as it gets past the vehicle, it then continues, even though the student is still halfway across the road.
Right.
So these stop arms are really acting like red lights, right, as opposed to stop signs. You're supposed to stay there until the bus continues on, and that's just not happening. Is this something that's unique to Austin? We know that Waymo does operate these driverless vehicles, in cities elsewhere in the country. Are they seeing similar incidents there?
So here's what I will say. October 29th, that's when AIC sent that first letter to Waymo. A little bit of 2 weeks before that, there had been an incident in Metro Atlanta where Waymo is operating. And essentially there were media reports, there was video that looked like maybe just a person on the street took it, where a Waymo illegally went around a stopped school bus in Metro Atlanta. And that media report actually triggered a federal evaluation. So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they opened up what they called a preliminary evaluation looking at how Waymo operates around school buses. And we spoke to folks with Waymo who say they're cooperating with that evaluation. They're working on answering these questions from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. But they also kind of gave an explanation. They were saying that the bus was blocking a driveway that the Waymo was coming out of, and it couldn't quite see that the stop arms were out, which you could imagine might be a similar problem that a human might have, right? Where they have a blind spot and they can't see. So that was Waymo's explanation for that. But all that to say, there was an active federal inquiry into Waymo and specifically how they operate around school buses before Austin ISD had even picked up on what was going on. And in our conversations, I think that might have been why all of a sudden Austin ISD was trying to look back to see, is this happening with us?
So, obviously Waymo says safety is their top priority. As you mentioned, the district reached out to them in late October, presenting them with these concerns. What was Waymo's response to that? What did they say they were going to do about it?
So we got our hands on email records between Austin ISD and Waymo. So the first reach out from Austin ISD, October 29th, was like, hey, we're noticing this. We're very concerned. Please let us know in writing what you plan to do to remedy this situation. And Waymo responded, and they said that they were working through it. In one of the emails, Waymo acknowledged that they had this active active evaluation happening with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they were acknowledging that they had identified some issues there, and that I think this was a November 5th email where they said, in fact, they had created some software updates for Waymo that would solve the issue. The trouble came after November 5th, there were more incidents of this. So November 5th, AIC was assured by Waymo, we have a software update that we think will handle this and that will remedy the issue. But then there were 7 more instances after that. And so Austin ISD's concern is, okay, whatever software update you're telling us about is not working, fully functioning. Waymo's response, and by this point, it was November 20th. Waymo's response was, essentially, we implemented the software updates over the course of several days, and they're kind of waving it out into their fleet, and that the software updates were complete by November 17th. So that was kind of their response back to that.
As far as Waymo's updates are concerned, then are they done with these software updates? Did they give any indication that they might continue to improve, safety changes?
In the responses that we get from Waymo, their commentary to us is that safety is their top priority and that their cars are learning, that they're constantly looking to tweak and make software updates to deal with any glitches that might be happening or any issues similar to what's going on here. And so it's hard to say if there won't be any more software updates, but the idea was that by November 17th, they felt and believed that it addressed the issue with the buses.
So you spoke to AISD Police Chief Wayne Sneed for this story. An interesting part of that interview was he is calling on Waymo to actually suspend operations during certain hours in the morning and in the afternoon and evening when kids are getting on and off of these school buses. What exactly is he calling for there?
So November 20th, that November 20th letter, right, where AISD is saying this is still happening, and it's happening now around kids. From our videos, we can see that November 20th letter was from AISD's legal team. So it was kind of, as you'd imagine with a big operation like Austin ISD, they're all kind of working together. Right. So we've got AISD Police Department that has a hand in this, the transportation department has a hand in it, but also the legal team. So the letter was from their senior legal counsel. And in the letter, they said, you said that the November 5th update would remedy the issue, but we saw incidents after that. And we want you to cease operations between, I think it was 5:20 and 9:30. And I think it was 3 to 7, because the idea is that's when we're picking up in neighborhoods, that's when we're dropping them off at school. It's when those are the times where kids are going to be in and out of these buses. And their idea was, until we see that the software updates are working, we would rather you cease operations during those times. And we did hear from AISD Police Department say part of that could be practicing around our buses. So one of the folks with the AISD Police Department said we would be open to Waymos coming in, into a big lot, and we would offer our buses to practice to see if the software updates are working, and would offer us an opportunity to see them working in real time. So I think that's the idea, that AIC wants them to shut down operations during those times until it can be tested in front of them. I think that's the idea.
I would assume those times are pretty peak travel hours for Waymo anyway. People who might not necessarily have their own car, they're using this robo-taxi essentially to get to and from work.
Right.
What has Waymo said anything about that request? Yeah,
Waymo wrote back the next day, and they said they wanted to meet with Austin IC. They wanted to meet in person. They wanted to talk through what might have led up to some of these citations, the software updates that they had. But in the letter, and then to us later on, we asked, did you comply with that, with the demand? Actually, the word in the letter was, we demand you cease operations. Will you comply with that? They said, we think the updates that we completed on November 17th cut to the issue and will be effective and will make the streets safer and will work. And so that was their response. They did not indicate that they plan to cease operations.
Were there any particular times of the year that this has been happening, or has it been spread out throughout most of the school year so far?
It's been spread out throughout the school year. The very first time was actually the third day of school. You can kind of see the timestamp on the video. The very first time was the first day of school, and the last time was November 14th. So the last that I have documentation of, a video was from November 14th.
It would be interesting to see, because obviously we're about to be in winter break. There won't be school buses on the road for a couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see come January, when we get more traffic and more of these buses back on the road, if the software has, if the updates have fixed the issue, or if we start seeing these incidents pop up again. We also know that Waymo does plan to expand in Texas. They want to start operations in, I think it's Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio pretty soon. Austin, you mentioned these meetings that they're having with Austin ISD. We know they're also meeting with Austin Police Department as well for a more citywide approach. What have we learned that's come out of those meetings with the city as opposed to the school district?
Yeah, so for months now, they've been meeting monthly with Waymo and then the stakeholders, right? Like AISD Police Department, Austin Police Department. And in those meetings, APD has used it as an opportunity to show what they have seen and what they've observed with Waymos. And so we had an opportunity to talk with Lieutenant White with the Austin Police Department, where he walked me through what they have been seeing. And he said largely what they have observed over the time that Waymo's been functioning in Austin is that sometimes the Waymos can have a hard time with officers who are on foot and giving directions, or could have a hard time with motorcycles that have their lights deployed in listening to those directions. So that's some of what's been coming up in those sit-down meetings with Waymo, is where they've been saying this is what's going on. And it's my understanding also that the Austin Police Department is sometimes trying to see the videos that Waymo has from their cars to get a better understanding of how Waymos are interacting on the roads.
Seeing the world around them.
Right. So it's essentially an opportunity for them to say, this is where you might need to make some tweaks. This is what we're seeing. And the letter that Waymo sent to Austin ISD, where they said, we want to meet, they wanted to do that ahead of the meeting that they have monthly with APD and other stakeholders. So we're looking out for what comes from that, what comes from this meeting, where all of them will be at the table discussing the safety concerns.
And again, I just want to reiterate, this is a small portion of all of these traffic citations that we're seeing. 19 of these instances involving Waymo out of more than 6,700 that have been mailed out altogether. The videos that you can see of these Waymos passing these stopped school buses are pretty compelling in some cases. You can see some of those in Kelly's reporting right now at KXAN.com.
Since recording this episode of Inside the Investigation, Austin ISD officials revealed one of Waymo's self-driving cars was caught violating a school bus's stop arm again. It was the 20th violation, according to the district, and it happened 2 weeks after Waymo said it completed a software update that solved the issue. Waymo's chief safety officer said the company is voluntarily filing a software recall related to its self-driving cars illegally passing school buses. Despite the recall, Waymo is still operating in the Austin area. In a statement, the company said it would track and implement more updates as needed. AISD officials tell us they are grateful that Waymo issued the recall, although they said they were not notified that the company intended to do so. District officials say they are still requesting Waymo to stop operating when buses are loading and unloading students. In a statement, the district said, quote, "Publicly acknowledging the danger posed to our students by their operations does not ultimately alleviate the danger." You can watch all new episodes of Inside the Investigation on the KXAN Plus app every Friday starting at 1 p.m. Just search for KXAN on your preferred streaming devices such as Roku, Apple TV, Samsung TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can also listen to KXAN's Investigative podcast, where we feature audio versions of our weekly Inside the Investigation episodes. You can find new episodes of those every Saturday morning wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for KXAN Investigates. I'm Christopher Adams. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next time.